but it's also doing transcription, so it's capturing everything I said because I unmuted myself already.
And it says we're live already, so everyone else is
Oh,
hearing us too.
hello, folks. We are live, aren't we?
Uh-huh.
Here we are. Welcome
Hi.
to Let's Become a Beloved Society. Conversations illuminating our path to wholeness. I'm here with my co-host Mary Ardania, and we have some topics to touch on from last week, and then we have some excellent questions that have come in over the week. So if you're here, thank you for joining us. If you're listening after the fact, you can find these recordings live on Fridays. Although for the next 2 Fridays, I think we're not going to be here. I have conflicting things that will keep me away. I'm on the road and traveling and won't be able to pull this off. But most Fridays live at 11 o'clock Alaska time, noon Pacific time, and then 3 p.m. Eastern time. And I think it's 8 p.m. London time and 7 a.m. Australian time. So let's see. Let's get started. Last week, one of the last things we acknowledged was that the conversation may have been difficult for people who are in the trauma community. And so I wanted to touch on that topic first, because I think a lot of times the conversations that we're having can really sound like impossible things to someone who's living through a trauma. And Mary, feel free to interrupt me at any point when you'd like to say something, because I am sort of looking at some notes, and so I can't see you. So one thing I wanted to ask is that when we say something that you find difficult, let us know. Reach out to us and let us know. And so if you're in the live audience, you can call in to the studio phone. I have it right here. The number's on the screen. For future reference for people listening after the fact, it's 907-351-3003. It is America, so you have to dial that 1, I think, now. Everybody's area code requirements have changed. We didn't have to use to dial the area code where we live, and now we have to include that. So make sure you include all the numbers you need to get to us. But you can call or text to that number at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you don't reach me, you'll reach voicemail or texting, and I'll make a note of your question and probably respond to you as well. But we're happy to address your concerns, because really the difference between understanding and being able to resonate with what we're talking about and experiencing your trauma is a shift in perspective. That's really all it takes to understand and to suddenly be able to see and relate to the world that we're trying to describe and move towards. And one of the ways to do that shift is when you're in the midst of feeling and experiencing a trauma, rather than focusing on why is this happening to you, an excellent shift is to ask instead, what is my response going to be to what is happening to me? Because that puts you into your power. That takes you to your power center and allows you to take control of the situation. Whereas up until that point, you may very well have been really giving your power away to someone else. Mary, do you have anything you'd like to contribute at this point?
Well,
Not to put you on the spot.
no, I'm just thinking about how to put words to my feeling. So, it's like people can be doing things that are against our will. And so we're not giving our power away when they do those things. That's
Right.
not what we're talking about.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Thank you
they
for
are doing
clarifying that.
those things, and that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is how we respond when that happens. And
Exactly.
so sometimes, you know, your response is affected by everything that's going on in your life. And so like if you feel like you can't respond in the most powerful way or whatever, that's totally understandable and fine. But just recognizing the part where people are doing what they're doing and I'm not responsible for that. And the only power that I do have is how I deal with that.
Right.
So that's what it's about, is realizing where I can have the power, which is in
Exactly.
my response, not necessarily your initial reaction, because a
Correct.
lot of that is instinct and the housing. But like, you know, when we have a moment to gather ourselves, then we can choose, you know, make choices about how we respond.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
so just to be clear, that none of this is about saying anything is your fault and, you
Exactly.
know, none of that, but just being able to realize that what I do have control over and what I don't. I have no
Exactly.
control over what other people are doing. I can have some effect over how I experience it and what I make of it.
Right. Right. Exactly. Thank you, Mary. That's very, very, very good uh, fleshing out of what we're talking about here. And I want to focus on a couple of two different words: react and respond. And so when we're in a trauma situation, it is our housing's wiring that will cause us to react to what's happening. When we can become mindful of these qualities about how life is working, it gives us the control to be able to shift from a reaction to a response. And you might not be able to do it the first time in that moment, but then the second time, if it happens, because you have a little bit of history now, it gives you a little more ability to detach and say, well, now, wait a minute, here's this thing happening again. Let me not react for a moment and let me think about this for a moment. What do I want to do? And that brings me to a share of a personal experience. When I was in college, I was living with my aunt and uncle. And my aunt was an alcoholic, a really bad alcoholic, pretty much drank all day. And by evening, she would become very vicious and violent. And I was uh, 18, 19, about that age. And I was in, oh, even, I guess it started when I was 17. I moved in there when I was 17 to go to junior college. And I got involved in the theater community right in the beginning of my college experience. And so that meant a lot of late nights. And then, at the end of a play, then we would go out and get a bite to eat, and people who were old enough to drink would drink. And then I would come home, and it would be maybe 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and she would be sitting up waiting for me. And she would come at me with a litany of accusations of, just all the terrible things I had done, whatever they may be. And then she would hit me. And then she would rattle off a whole nother list. And then she would hit me. And this sort of became every kind of weekend night thing. And then I left junior college and I went to a 4-year school in San Francisco. And I was introduced to my first psychology class. And in that class, I learned something and I was given a tool. And so the next time I went home for the weekend, the same thing happened. She was waiting up for me and she came at me and was, she pretty much beat the crap out of me on those nights. And so she came at me with her litany of things. And instead of defending myself the way I would have in the past, before I took this class, I would say, no, that's not what I meant. No, I didn't do that. No, and I'm constantly defending myself. And what I didn't understand was in that action, I was fueling the fire. I wasn't in any way helping to put the fire out. I was just fueling the fire. And every time I said no, it gave her another reason to hit me. And so I tried this new thing that I learned from my teacher, my professor. She came at me and she got her arm up and she was ready to just wail on me. And instead of saying no, I said, you're right. You do think that. You do believe that. Instead of denying her reality, I just agreed with her that was her reality. And, she had that arm up and she was just ready. And I didn't give her the fuel. And that arm dropped. And then she had the next list, and but you, and got it up again. She was going to do it again. And I said, you're right. Okay, you're right. And I was not admitting any form of guilt. I was not in any way agreeing with her. What I was doing was I was letting her have her perspective. Okay, I understand. You see it that way. And the arm dropped. Third time's charm, right? So here she comes again. And I just said, I understand what you're saying. I understand. You're mad. You want to beat the shit out of me. She turned on her heel and stormed away, and she never did that again. Even though I stayed there for not a long time after that. Because in that act, right? So we had this cycle and we had this dance and it was comfortable and we both knew how it worked. But the minute I was able to break that chain of pain, I didn't need to stay there anymore either. I found the resilience within myself to be able to say, there are other places I could live. Because at this point, I wasn't 17 or 18. I was actually 20. And there were other places I could live. And so I got my little act together and I found a different place to live so that we didn't even have to wonder what was going to happen when I came home at night. So I hope that can illustrate how with just a small shift within yourself and how you respond rather than react to someone coming at you in that kind of way. And you can sort of extrapolate that into just, other situations as well. That you can really step into your power in a way that you're probably not currently. Mary? I'm not hearing you.
I muted myself so I could cough and clear my throat.
Good deal.
It's a good anecdote. I was just thinking about the need to be heard. It's like and in a totally different context, I work in a law school in the pro bono clinics. And the sad truth is that a lot of people need help, and we have very few programs to help them. So I spend a lot of my time here on the phone listening to people tell me a problem that we don't have anybody to help them. It's hard, actually. And sometimes, just being that person who listens and says, I'm really sorry, I can't help you, and I don't know where to send you. And it really is a horrible system. But like giving them that sympathetic ear, that's all I can give them. And sometimes it helps. It feels like it does help. So, like, just, I mean, not just in terms of the um, trauma thing, but just in terms of becoming this beloved society. That's one thing that we can do for each other, right? Is listen and and yeah, be a witness. And now I'm not hearing you, Linda.
because I did the same thing. Uh, Thank you. We've got a couple of viewers here live. If you'd like to make a comment or have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Or again, call or text the phone on the screen, 907-351-3003. We're all just walking each other home. That is why we're really all here. Here's the interesting thing. We're really all here for each other. That's why
Right.
we're here. We came with one purpose, to create heaven on earth, and we're here to do that together. That's why we all came. Now, what we're up to on a daily basis around here on planet Earth doesn't look a whit like that, does it? So we're a little off track at the moment, but that's what Mary and I are here to help with. And there's a whole myriad of people out there trying to help get us back on track. Jesus
and it's
tried,
And it's good to clarify that's what we're here for, because I didn't know that for the first however many decades of my life. I think when I was a child, I understood it instinctively, because I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to like give people what they needed and stuff like that. And I still do as a grown up. It's sort of translated in the desire to always say yes to every request, and then realize afterwards, oh, it's more like I want to do that, but I don't actually want to do it. But like this idea that my life's purpose is really about how I interrelate with others. A one way to put it is about service, but that word might sound like a burden. And to me, it's really about bringing the kind and loving energy into every interaction with everybody on a daily basis as much as possible. Some days it's more possible than others, but like, had I known that like 40 or 50 years ago, my life probably would have worked out a little different. But on the other hand, we all know, well, we know anyway, it worked out perfectly just the way it's supposed to. So, but
right.
the younger you realize that, I think the more we have an opportunity to really create something beautiful in our lives.
Well, it's interesting because that was actually the question from the week. So I did have a couple of things, other things I wanted to touch on from last week to sort of, uh, continue the conversation and give some clarity. But I think let's go ahead, because we're on this now. Let's jump into this for a few minutes, because it really is the key to everything, I believe. The question of the week, and let me get it in front of me so I have it clearly. How do I know what my soul's purpose is? And this is a conversation that I've had with multiple people, not just this week, but it seems to be really a very prevalent inquiry when you start to have questions, when you start to have discussions about spirituality and why are we here. And almost everybody I know, when that subject comes up, why are we here? They say, I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. And so this is really fundamental to life. And it's hard to imagine how we got so far off track that we don't all know. I know that in the process of incarnation, when we come into form, into a body, there is a forgetting that happens, and it's I believe a consequence of the actual transmutation between the invisible realm and the physical realm. There's a forgetting, an apparent forgetting. But I think that it actually doesn't happen. A lot of people say that, that the angels do this, shh, when we come in, and that's why there's this indentation under our nose. I'm quite sure the body has a different explanation for the indentation under our nose. And I believe that the forgetting doesn't actually really happen until we get about 5 or 6. Because you can have conversations with small children and they are magical. They're
Yeah.
magical conversations.
I've
So,
I've been watching a show on Netflix called Surviving Death, and it talked about various aspects of like near death experiences. And the episode last night, the last of the 6 episodes, was on reincarnation, and it was very fascinating to see these little like 3 and 4 year old kids. And my one of my nieces, talked to her mother about her little brother in another life. Well, here's this little kid saying, I used to go to the park with my mother, and his mother says, "You mean with me?" And he's like, "No, my other mother." He remembered his name. He remembered that he was killed. The
right,
researcher brought him pictures. He'd bring 2 pictures, this park or this park, this person or this person. Kid got 5 of 5 right, right?
right,
So, and you're right. It was like around 6-ish is the age they say that they usually forget.
exactly,
But all this stuff
exactly.
that we think is children making it up,
It's not.
yeah.
It's not.
So, yeah.
And
Anyway, go
yeah, and
ahead.
I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that talked about why I was here and what was going to happen on the planet. And what's funny is that when I was little, uh, I always heard people say the same thing, and I really, it was almost it wasn't a trauma, but it was definitely a mystery to me because what I heard them say was, "Oh, she's just like a little lamb without the bee." Well, that's not what they were saying. What they were saying was, she's just like a little lamp without the pea. Because I was a bright light when I was very little. And then I learned actually through those sharings, I learned to really stop talking about it. I never forgot,
Yeah.
right? I never forgot from the other side. And then I got here. And so I was talking about all of that stuff. And I never forgot it. I still remember all of it. I just stopped talking about it because I realized that I was surrounded by people who could not understand what I was saying and didn't believe me. And so, you just, when you're little like that, you learn well, don't even bring it up.
Yeah.
Now, then you stop sharing, and then most kids go through that forgetfulness.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason I didn't is, again, because I remember from the other side.
Right.
So I have a different way of being here, and that is my gift, right? That is the crux of the gift that I bring,
Right.
to be able to explain that so that people can understand that no, you don't die. This is not the end of anything. it's so much more is going on here than meets the eye. Please listen, you know. So basically, the answer to the question, how do I know what my soul's purpose is I was going to say maybe mute. Let me go back to my note for a second. Okay. We all have the same purpose. As I said earlier, we all have the same purpose, and that is we came here to create heaven on earth. That's what we're all doing here. I know it doesn't look like that, but that is what we're all doing here. And while each of us may have we each have our own unique lives. It's not a may, we do. Everybody's life is unique in the day-to-day happenings and the interactions and how they go and who they are. The purpose, what we are all doing, is the same. And that's why that saying that we are all just walking each other home is so accurate, because that really is why we're all here. It would be nice if more people could remember that that's why we're all here.
Yes, wouldn't it? I attended this workshop once that was about, like, what did they call it? What is your, I don't think it was life's purpose. I think it was work, like your life's work or something like that. And the funny thing is that for every single person at that workshop, an aspect of our work was involved love, like more love one way or another. Some people it was like with their family or whatever. Mine, I wrote Mary's manifesto for a living at that workshop, and it went like this. 1, love myself unconditionally. 2, love others unconditionally. 3, forgive myself when I fail at 1 and 2. 4, return to 1 and 2.
Right. Yes. Yes. That really is and actually, in the divine realm, no forgiveness is required.
Right.
That's that's the real key. We don't need to forgive ourselves, and we don't need to forgive others, because in the divine realm everything is as it should be in the moment.
And also in the divine realm, there is no self and others.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this idea of loving myself and who is the one who loves and the one who is loved. And ultimately, it just all reduces to love.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, let me look at my notes here for a second. I wanted to share something because the so one of the people, when we were having the conversation about we all have the same purpose to create heaven on earth, the response was, what does that even mean? I actually even think there was an expletive in there somewhere. What does that even mean? Heaven on earth. It sounds like pie in the sky. And so
Pie sounds like heaven on earth. Let's have some pie.
I came across this person on Facebook by the name of Boho Dogan, and she shared this post, and it I really feel like it is a beautiful description of what the future could hold were we to accomplish what we all came here to create. And so I wanted to just read this and share it with you all. I'm 74 years old now, and the year is 2050. I'm sitting under a beautiful dusk sky where my wind chimes are playing gently in the breeze. I'm overlooking pastures of the most beautiful tranquil hills, of green forests and lakes, as my eyes gaze on a herd grazing in the distance. The sky is alight this evening in oranges and pinks, soft pinks and yellows. I am still here only because God intended it to be so. Our earth has gone through dramatic changes and events, but this all seems in the past now, a story many of us will remember and pass on to the next generations, so we may never forget. We witnessed an awakening. Many of us did not realize it until it was too late. Souls crossed over, choosing so. Most of us witnessed very painful times, but also witnessed miracles happen in all pockets all over the earth. Cities were left abandoned, and great forests grew, turning everything anew. Small communities started to appear all over the planet, where people lived naturally and the land and all animals. Human beings started to be able to feel again, the land, feel, the animals. It was a new way where we started to deeply feel with our hearts. Those that cross over knew that this great awakening, but had decided that the experience they wanted to have would be different for everyone. Memory of who we were started to come back, that everything was sacred, everything was a manifested, miraculous planet. Many of us were able to communicate with animals and understand. The heart energy crossed all boundaries, all continents, all borders. We were able to communicate telepathically with each other. This is why we no longer have what is called back then the internet. We have no electrical frequencies interfering with our energetic bodies. Our electromagnetic fields are one with Earth. Our food is grown organically as nature intended it to be so. Many women use a machine that a carpenter invented in 2030 to wash clothing. It seems old-fashioned, but actually it works just as well as a washing machine. It just needs a little work. When I think back in my youth, I almost killed myself with all those old-fashioned toxic chemicals I used. Who would have thought was so switched off back then? But the light came back to the planet, causing a celestial event, touching all dimensions across a vast plain. And under the great firmament came a light, the Christ energy touching everything. It came to awaken our hearts, minds, and our souls. This is why so many of us started to fight with our own demons, and many could not cope with the voices in their heads. Many left. But many came, and those were miracles, the miracle children of pure luminous light. The next generations to come came to hold the heart energy in its place and to anchor it. A new way had rebirthed, and nothing could stop it. What we realized during the Great Awakening was that we were magicians of the Christ energy, being able to manifest at will, and so too did the ones that held on to fear. We had come very strong in our minds and in our hearts, knowing exactly what we wanted on earth. As the energy that came with celestial awakening was intense, many could not cope with the influx. Grounding nature, prayer, love, and kindness was the key for those that understood self-love and love for others. We understood that setting our intentions on the positive would create worlds of bliss. As we studied our past history, we finally understood who we were and that we all were lied to and how powerful we truly are. Christ aligned, Christ energy from source. Pure sparks of God love. New generations are here now, plowing the fields, building dome-like homes out of special crystals located in certain areas and mountains around the planet, elevating the frequency of love. Houses are decorated inside with art, celestial music, handmade instruments are played in gatherings and with each other to pass the time on lazy days, but everyone helps. Everyone helps one another. There are no strangers because we know that we are all interconnected with one another. The old mindset of separation no longer exists in our new crystalline Christ bodies. You see, something happened when this energy began, and it reopened vortexes all over the planet. Something happened to our DNA strands, which elevated our consciousness. Many did not have the deep heart connection and faith in the knowing and decided to opt for something that stopped their internal conscious growth. Many were against it. Those, those, many were against it, those that knew. In the hills where I live, I now hear laughter. I feel joy. I feel the moment of being alive right here now. Miraculous times are happening daily all over Earth. Uh-oh. Hang on. The thing just jumped in my hand, probably because I've got tears. So miraculous times are happening daily all over Earth, and we live in peace, all of us. Nothing else exists other than Creator's love. We were lied to that that there must be a balance. There is balance. This balance is called love. As I put down my painting brush from the future, I look back to the ones who are listening in the past and say only that you should follow your heart and have no fear, no matter what. Hold strong during this time, for we will win. We will win, and we will do it with our celestial angels, guardians, and God. Those of us who ask for help and prayer daily will always be guided. Have faith, know everything will be okay, and love will win, like it always has, as new worlds are reborn. You are and always have been a manifestor. Remember who you are. I'm going to feed the horses now. Bless you and all those who are building the new earth. And so it is. Boho Dogan. So that's it, right? Love.
Love and taking care of each other.
Right. Right.
I miss that feeling of a society that feels a responsibility to care for its vulnerable people.
Right. Right.
So it'd be nice to have that back.
Yes. Yes. It would be
Hopefully
nice if
before I die.
yeah, and it would be nice if the planet could get to that place.
Yeah.
Something that Boho rather shared with me yesterday was that she is when she receives these messages, so she's a channel, and she receives these downloads. When she receives them, she's actually in the ocean. And as she describes it, the ocean has all the memory. And the way I would describe it is the ocean knows the play. Just like all the inanimate objects, all of the physical stuff that surrounds us, I believe, knows the play. It understands all of it because everything is consciousness, including everything that we think are things. It's all just consciousness. And so I believe the things that are in our world, the physical things that are in our world, are actually in our world because they all are understanding that there's a play going on here. It's like the scenery on a stage. It's all there to make the play look the way it needs to look in the given scene that it's in.
I think probably everything knows it except for humans. Humans are the ones who've forgotten everything.
Right,
It's like our big brains.
right, right, right. And you may be right, Mary. Everything knows it except us. And even some of us know it. Um, it's just a matter of trying to get everybody else to know it. And
It's
I
it's
don't
the forgetting. I think that forgetting that you were talking about,
right,
that's what we've forgotten.
right, right. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of competitive words. So
Right.
at the end of this reading where she's talking about love wins,
Winning, winning.
winning.
I agree with you. I am also not for winning implies the fight, the competitive and the
Right,
fighting thing, which
right,
we've talked about before.
right,
You know, cooperation words. I guess if we all win.
right. And it is a matter, and I think that's why it's okay for the word win to be in that download, because in a way it's not a competition, but there is an objective, right? There is a destination. We get there. That's the I like to put it that way better than to say we win. We get there. We get there. We accomplish it. We came here to do something and we accomplish it.
Well, also the idea that love wins. It's like love is everything. Everything is love. So it can be no other way, as you would say, Miss Linda.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if everything is love, then love is
Everything.
already one.
Right.
How about one, ONE?
Right.
Who
Right.
love one? I tickled my funny bone.
So this actually might be a good transition into one of the things that I wanted to loop back to from last week. Was we touched on we love us, the concept of we love us, but we didn't really go into it. And so a couple of people were like, well, I wish you could just explain it. I understand there's a new version coming, but what was the original? So if you want to go to the website, there is a nice full page with a lot of information about We Love Us. You go to lindalamp.com, and then under About, you'll see We Love Us as an option. And for those of you that haven't seen it visually, it's Linda with a Y, LYNDALAMP.com. So the backstory briefly about We Love Us is we, as a country, America back, and this dates back to about 2008. America was struggling as a country, and the question that I kept basically praying over was, how do we create a world that works for everyone? Because it seemed like a pivotal time in America's history. We just elected a Black man, the first Black president of our country. It really felt in that victory, it really had felt to me like America had really stepped up. And then instantly, the dark side, the historic, America's a white country and those people are not people. That whole side of our history and country really became enlivened in resistance to the fact that we had elected a Black president. And racism and all the things that I had been working towards, a world of love, a world of inclusivity, a world of understanding, really seemed quite threatened. And so I started praying, how do we create a world that works for everyone? And the answer didn't come quickly and it didn't come easily. It took several years for it all to sort of shake out. But the answer that finally emerged, the simple answer is we love us. That's how we do it. And then of course the question to that is, how do we go about doing that? And so We Love Us is an acronym for 8 individual mission statements or action statements that if you take the first letter from each of them and lay them out, it spells we love us. Now, as I mentioned the last during the last podcast, I am going to be releasing a revision of this. We're going to have a We Love Us 2, version 2, because I don't know if I stopped listening too early, or if the rest of the answer was waiting right there then and I didn't realize it. But what's become very clear in the last year or two is that it needs to be expanded and to be more inclusive and specific. So version 2.0 will be We Love Us, all of us. So it'll be an additional group of statements that together will give direction and hopefully perhaps expand our ability to do this, create a world that works for everyone. But the 8 statements in the original We Love Us are as follows. And what I have said to people is that if people would simply adopt these as their way of going about daily life, we could change the world overnight. So here we go. Weave a fabric of unity and peace worldwide. Embrace Earth as irreplaceable and all life with respect. Love and forgive everyone unconditionally. Offer openness, honesty, truthfulness, and transparency. Volunteer service to others. Ensure everyone gets a voice, vote, and equal opportunity. Unite the divided with infinite love. Solve our problems together in harmony. So that's the basic framework. And it's the answer to the question, how do you create a world that works for everyone? So I hope you'll look forward, as I do, to the release of We Love Us 2.0. I'm hoping to do that. I'm actually hoping to do that this Easter Sunday. And it is Good Friday, which may also explain why we don't have as many attendees today. We did discuss whether or not we would not have the podcast because it was Good Friday, but we decided that what better day to do it. So here we are, basically spreading love and encouraging Christ consciousness. So it seems like a worthy thing to do on a Good Friday. All right. You're muted, Mary.
I was making a little nothing, spreading love like peanut butter.
Yes.
I must be hungry.
All right. Well, we've got about 20 minutes left. Let me go back to my notes and just see. Okay. This will be good. And we won't have to spend a lot of time on it because there aren't too many people here with us today. But we talked about the Bible and various versions of the Bible last week. And so I wanted to bring the copy of my Bible here for people to see. So this is, and for the listeners who can't see, it's on the cover. It says Holy Bible from the Ancient Eastern Text. And then at the bottom, it's the George M. Lamsa translation from the Aramaic of Peshitta. And so that is, and you can see it's quite, let's see here, it's quite a thick book. It's not a small thing. I wanted to find a passage that people would be familiar with, and then read a comparison. And I looked at the 23rd Psalm, thinking that might be a good one. But actually, I think everybody sort of went, all right, well, this says this. And they were all pretty much in agreement as to what it said. So I didn't find a lot of variation. But I do know that you could take this copy of the Bible and you could take a King James version of the Bible and find some significant differences in other chapters and places. So then that brings me to we've talked about it a little today already too, touching on Yeshua, or Jesus, as most people call him, and the consciousness that he is. Mary spoke about this last week and mentioned, that it's really Christ consciousness. That was what he was trying to share with the rest of humanity, is that it was to illustrate how, because of his consciousness and his conscious connection to divinity, he was empowered with the ability to do miracles and create and do all kinds of things that humans of his time no longer could do. And so he exists in the realm of consciousness and is available to anyone who can open their hearts and allow his consciousness in, which is the consciousness of divinity. He will also, however, make himself known in other ways as well. And I wanted to share this because I do have a personal experience of actually, I have several personal experiences where Yeshua has shown up either in meditations for me and illustrated things for me. And then in other situations, he's actually stepped into me. So I've had two experiences where, through meditation, it was as if his body melded with my body. And so you can have that experience as well. And I wanted to make sure that we opened up to that possibility, because there are people that have had that experience as well as I have. So it's he's available actually at any time, in any moment. All you have to do is ask, and he will show up. I don't know, Mary, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Muted.
I keep, muting
Yeah, I
myself.
understand.
Just the only thing I have to say is that while you were talking, I just sat here and thought about him. And, my experience is like when you think about consciousness of a person or something, it shows up like in my field. So I was just thinking about, Jesus as I think of him, and he showed up in my field. It's funny because he showed up as this statue that we had when I was a child. It's like that's what Jesus looks like to the very primal part of me,
Right.
And just kind of basking in that energy. And that's all. I was just, I knocked my phone over.
Whoops.
So I was just kind of, I mean, wrapping myself up in that energy, frankly. So that's an example of how easy it is to connect if we, the key point in all of that is we have to believe it's possible. If I just looked at it and went, well, I'm just imagining that Jesus doll from my childhood and it's nothing, then I wouldn't have that experience of feeling sort of enveloped in that peace. So
Right. Right. You have to be open. That's definitely a quality to being able to embrace new and divergent ideas, right? We can't grow if we've limited ourselves in what we can believe in.
and most of us are raised in such a way that we have limited ourselves in what we can believe in. Like from that show I was watching on Netflix, you have this mother telling the father of their child, I think he's reincarnated. And the father's like, get away from me. That can't be right. There were two different instances like that where the father was like total rejection of the idea, partly because they were Christian. And the funny thing is that in early Christianity, reincarnation was not rejected. It was not seen as, I think that it was considered a thing that happened. Anyhow, that I think that a lot of, I was thinking about that a lot watching that show. It's like, what is the um, investment that organized religion has in telling us, no, that can't be right. No, reincarnation is not right. No, you can't talk to dead people on the other side. No, it's like the thing that's interesting is this American Society for Research into all these kind of phenomenons. William James, who was the American father of modern psychiatry or psychology or whatever, he was a member of that society,
Right.
as was like Mark Twain and other famous scientists and stuff.
Right.
They all were investigating these phenomenon because they happened. So why not investigate them? But
Right.
somehow we've got to this point where we're just like, no. For a lot of people, it's just like, no.
I think that it's about power and control. If
You're probably right.
if uh I mean, think about it. If everybody could just manifest food, then how are the people who grow food and think that they deserve to be paid for food? How are they going to make a living if everybody can just manifest their own food? So, I mean, I just use that as an example, but that's basically, we are manifestors, we are creators. And what's happened is, the through the forgetfulness, we've created a society that depends on us having forgotten. And if we were to try and that's why, that reading that I read is there's no way to make this shift, it would seem, without some form of what some people would call some doom or gloom scenario, because we've created an entire society that is dependent upon the need for people to have money so that they can buy the things that they need to survive. And we are going to a society where we are all creative beings and we work in harmony with nature, and there's no lack, there's no insufficiency, there's no need, because everything is abundant and available to us. And we have to make this transition.
And this is probably something we'll have to talk about more another time because we have 12:58
Yeah.
right now. And it's a
Yes.
concept that, you've talked about it a lot. And my mind, I was an economics major, so my
Right.
mind is very bulky. I'm like the donkey you're trying to drag over there. And I'm like,
Right.
ah. But,
I know, but you understand the concept of oneness and creativity
yes,
and
I do.
divinity. And so that it's why you're a perfect person to be here co-hosting, because you've got the background in existing economics, and yet you understand where we're needed, where we're going.
Yeah.
And it is a real question how we get there. It's
Yeah.
not
Who
it's
knows?
and the thing is, it's because the difficulty is not getting there. The difficulty is the framework within which we're trying to move, right? It's set up for, coming back to the original question, it's about control and power.
Also, I just need to say, I don't mind paying for food. It's all the rest of the unreasonableness. It's like, I'll pay the farmer for the food, but why do I have to give Jeff Bezos billions of dollars? You
Right,
know,
right,
anyway.
right.
That's
Well,
all.
that's our time. It's 12 o'clock straight up. I do want to give listeners a head up. I think that the next 2 Fridays are not going to be possible.
Boo-hoo.
I know. Boo hoo. I am hoping that May 6th will be possible. I have a very busy event happening that weekend, but I think that I can pull off 11 to 12 with all of you. So um, we'll plan to see you back here live on May 6th. And in the meantime, if you have any questions to submit, you can do them to the phone number 907-351-3003, or you can send an email to questions@walkingthroughyourwalls.com, and through is spelled out. Uh, thank you again for either being here live or listening after the fact. And we're happy to have you as a part of the conversation.
Yes, we are.
Thank you to my co-host, Mary, and namaste. Much love.